I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have 3 items to add to the agenda. We have the audit. We have the fire chief from Scaly Mountain. And we also going to go into executive session afterwards. I'll let have a
Excuse me,
motion.
Mayor. We stipulate executive session pending litigation.
Correct. Thank you. I'd like to have a motion to accept this section of the agenda with the 3 additional items.
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor?
All right.
Motion carried. We're going to jump up to our Jolie Nixon, and we are going to do that as the first item.
Okay, great.
Please.
All right, well, good morning. It's good to be with you all this morning. I remember some of you from last year. We've got some new faces from when I was here last year, so it's good to meet all of you. And be
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I'm chair, just a little bit of. I'm going to be going over the audit this morning of 2018 year. It was quite a change for you all, especially from August on. But we'll discuss some of that. You have in front of you a couple of items that I'm going to be going over. First is just our standard communication of governance letter. This also has attached to it adjusting journal entries that Ella, really for her benefit, that they are attached to this letter if you have any questions about those. The second that you have, though, covers the findings. And I'm also going to point that out in your blue folder where the audit is. So those findings we'll talk about, they're on page 41. And I'll tell you that everything went very well during the course of the audit. These findings that we have, we did mark them as material weaknesses, but they primarily pertain to the change that you had in staffing from August on. And those were because of the resignation of the city manager. You were limited to 2 staff members who were basically wearing many hats. So there was really not segregation of duty during that time. From primarily August of 18 through April of 19 was really the time period where there was not segregation of duty. So what does that mean? It means that you had the same person taking in deposits, entering those in the system, taking those deposits to the bank. You have the same individual processing the payroll, cutting the checks, a check signer, also reconciling bank statements. So you didn't have enough segregation of duty there to prevent if there were any intentional or unintentional errors. So we want to point that out. And in times like that, when you are limited as council members, then that's time where you all may have to step in to try to mitigate some of those risks, whether it's coming in and opening the bank statement, just looking through it, making sure there's nothing out of the ordinary going on, just to kind of protect the employees that you do have, since it is so limited during that time. So I want to point that out to you. Those were the material weaknesses, the findings 1 and 2 that we had. Finding number 3 is a standard finding in small local municipalities, and that basically has to do with, unless you hand us these financials and note disclosures, then you're pretty much relying on us to prepare them. That's not unusual in a government of your size. A lot of local municipalities depend on their external auditors to prepare the financials that are necessary, and hence where the adjusting journal entries come into play. So, and that's what we're doing there. These are our recommendations. You take them as you wish. As with any recommendation in the finding, you have to weigh the cost benefit of that to the city, and that primarily comes into play on that last finding. It would be probably cost prohibitive for you to hire an outside CPA to come in and prepare this when you know that we're coming in to do it, hence that finding. So any questions there on the findings at all?
The adjustments, does that mean those are the line items that need to change on what we have done previously? Or could you help me understand this?
Yes, okay, so in governmental accounting, there's several different statements which you will see in the audit. They're prepared on different bases of accounting. So some are prepared on what they call a modified accrual basis, some are prepared on an accrual basis. So those adjusting entries are getting back to those statements so that we can report them on the basis of accounting that's required for government auditing. They're not necessarily, let me look at some of these just to tell you. Some of these are very standard, like you're primarily seeing your financials on a cash basis, if you will. So when you pay your debt, for instance, all that's going into a principal line item that you're seeing, and we're coming in at the audit and we're taking that and we're putting it against the debt to lower that liability. So those are an example of the entries we're making. We're also coming in and making depreciation entries and capitalizing assets that need to be capitalized. So just getting those financials back to the basis that's required for this reporting.
Okay. Is that something that ordinarily we would be doing ourselves? In the
No.
normal course of business? Okay.
And that's part of the finding when you say that we're preparing, you're relying on your external auditor to prepare the statements that are required. That's part of that, and that's not uncommon for us to come in and do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. What I'd like to do, you've got the audit and you also have, I've done a summary for you. I'm going to go back and forth. The summary is just that, is a summary. So I want to show you the statements that I'm referring back to. And if you have any questions, we can dive deeper. But if you'll look in your audit, just turn in your audit to page 4 at the bottom. And if you want to follow along with your summary, the summary summarizes the detail that's found on this page. And this is your statement of net position. Otherwise, for those of you in business, known as your balance sheet is a good way to put it. So this is going to summarize your governmental activities, which make up your general fund. Your business activities is your enterprise, your water and sanitation fund. So the total, you'll see your total assets for the year or over 7.5 million. And of that, you've got about 2.7, 2.8 in cash. So you're fairly liquid. You've got some receivables there, and then the majority of it, the remaining majority of it, of about 4.4, is made up of capital assets. So those are all the assets, and your policy is to capitalize anything that is 5,000 or more and has an estimated useful life of 2 years or more. So that's what we're capitalizing here.
Charlie, cash and cash equivalents are $2.7 million. Now, this is done as of December 31st.
Correct.
Now, am I correct that this reflects collecting all the taxes in advance before we spend them in 2019?
They would be in those bank balances.
Okay,
yes.
so this would be the day of the year when our assets are the highest.
Right.
Okay, but it's not all reserves, it's the money that we plan to expend as our budget, plus our reserves.
It's not all of your reserves, it's
Oh,
not-
okay.
Yes, no. I mean, you do have those, any tax receipts that you've gotten in, and if you'll look lower, the property tax revenue that was billed was around $944,000, so just under $1 million. That is what was billed that was for 19. We moved over in 19. You had about that same amount the year before. It did not change drastically.
Right.
So, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay. Your deferred outflows of resources, and you'll see deferred inflows of resources, those pertain to net pension liability, which governments are now required to book on their financials. That change occurred about 3 or 4 years ago. Before that time, you were not required to book a net pension liability, and now you are. So those pertain to that to the pension. But as far as your liabilities, your current liabilities for 18 are a little under 139,000. And then your long-term liabilities are around 1.5, and that's primarily made up of your debt from the water and sanitation fund. And then you had unearned property tax revenue that pertains to 2019, 944,000, a little over 944,000. So any questions so far on that? If you look at your net position, you're going to see down there you have close to $3 million that's invested in capital assets, and then you have a little over 3,000 that's designated for capital projects. The 1.97 million that you see is the unrestricted, and that is what could be used to pay for, your 2019 budget going forward. Those are things that are considered to be unrestricted and can be used to meet your ongoing obligations for other things that you'd like to do throughout the year. So that is unrestricted net reserves. One thing to point out before we leave this statement is the biggest part of your net position is invested in your capital assets. So about 60% of that reflects your investment in your capital assets. And that's made up of your land, your buildings, your utility systems, equipment, and infrastructure.
Totally illiquid. Totally illiquid.
Right.
Okay.
Your net position did increase from 2017 by about 27%. And again, your liquidity at the end of the year was around 2.7, 2.8 million, so still very liquid.
What was that figure from 2017 over 2018?
27% it increased.
I see.
And that's due again to what?
Well, 2017 was a different type of year. You had a lot more in capital asset expenditures. So your capital assets, your investments went up way high in 2017. You had several paving projects that you did and park improvements. So you did not have that in 18, hence why your unrestricted went up and your capital assets went down. Okay?
And before we leave this page, we have a net pension liability.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we should be concerned about, or?
No, that's going to fluctuate every year. That's what I was talking about as a change in governmental accounting. Up until about 3 years ago, you were not required to report that at all in your financials. We get those actuarial amounts. Actually, you probably will be getting one very soon. They come out in July typically and tell them what their required contribution is for the next year. And they also give us what the net pension liability is. And that is, it's subject to fluctuations in the market. So that is always going to be a moving target. But if everybody were to leave today, that's what you would owe.
Okay. To the, is it a GMA pension fund?
It is a GMA.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions? Any other questions on that? Okay, the next statement I'm going to go over is your changes in your net position. And if you turn the page in your audit and also in your slides, this is called, referred to as the statement of activities, but it details your revenue and your expenses. And I think it's easier to look at this than the audit, but if you want to see the actual numbers and the detail, then by all means, I want you to know the page that we're referring back to. But you will see here your total revenues for all funds were over 1.8 million. That's out to the right. Total expenses were a little over 1.5 million. You had a positive change at the end of the year of about 269,000. That was up from 2017 by about 21%, or about $46,000. You will see a transfer in and out from governmental to enterprise of about $16,000. There were assets that were in the governmental fund that were primarily used in enterprise, and those assets were transferred out. The 16,000 was the difference between the cost of those assets and what had already been depreciated. So that is why you see that there. If you will look at your business type activities, your enterprise fund, you'll see there was a slight decrease. That's the middle section. There was a slight decrease in enterprise revenues, less than 1% compared to 17. There was also a slight decrease in the expenses by about 6.7% compared to 17. Going in the first columns, the first set of columns, the governmental activities, were kind of going backwards. There was a nominal increase in governmental revenues compared to 2017 by about 2.2%. And then your expenses increased slightly by 1.5%. So very, very nominal changes there between 17 and 18. Any questions? One thing I want to point out before we leave this, in these first two statements, this will differ from the statements that you are typically seeing on a regular basis, because these are prepared on a modified accrual, meaning that we capitalize assets that need to be capitalized, and we're recording depreciation instead of the actual outlay. And again, we're taking that principal on the notes and we're reducing that liability, so you're not going to see that principal payment in these expense items as you're used to probably seeing on a monthly basis. One thing that you'll notice is between your governmental and your business type activities, or your enterprise fund is about 1/3 of your overall total revenue and expenses. So our focus going forward in the slides, we're going to focus on the governmental activities. That is where the majority of your revenue and your expenses are spent. So on page 6 of the slides, I've just got percentages here in your governmental activities, and that purple part of the revenues is hard to read. I'm going to tell you that percentage. It's 82.59%. So about 83% of your revenues is from your property taxes. And then you'll see everything else is under 5%. Your charges for services, any grants that you receive, they're all well under 5%. On the expense side, you have about 33% is spent in general government. You see your fire at about 5.76%, police around 28%, and your streets are around 24%. And then everything else is under 5% of your expenditures. We're going to dig a little deeper in the governmental activities and look at the general fund and the summary of changes in the general fund. And if you want to refer to this statement-wise in your audit, it's going to be on page 7. And this statement is prepared more in line with what you would be seeing, meaning that the capital outlays that you have during the year are recognized in this statement. Depreciation is not. Your principal payment on your, well, that's not in there because that's an enterprise, but if you had any principal payments on loans, they would be recognized in this statement. So you can see in comparing these from 17 to 18, there was a significant increase in the change in fund balance. So you had a loss in 17 of about $263,000 compared to 18 of $292,000. Now there are reasons for that, and primarily in 2017, if you'll remember, you had capital outlays of over $537,000 in 17, spent for the paving that we discussed and upgrades to your park. That was compared to less than $10,000 in 2018. So that's primarily why you're seeing that fluctuation that you're seeing. There was overall a 2.8 increase in the revenues over 17. So you went from 1.184 to 1.217 total revenues. The expenses decreased by 37.6%. Again, those main areas were due to the streets and the parks. So your expenses went from 1.457 to 909,000. Your average expenses in 2018 total $75,836. That's your average monthly expenses in 2018. If we took the cash just in the general fund at the end of the year, you could cover over 21 months of expenses if nothing else came in, which is really remarkable. GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, they require at least a minimum of 2 months. So you're well over and beyond that 2 months. The other thing to point out here is about 84% of your unrestricted fund balance, or 84% of your total revenues is unrestricted, and the remainder of that is restricted. So, any questions? Some other miscellaneous items for your enterprise fund, those statements start on page 10. And you also, again, have a statement of net position, and you have the revenue and expenses that follow that. If you look on page 11, your operating revenues for the enterprise fund are over $597,000. Your operating expenses were over $521,000, so you had net operating income of over $76,000. And then below that, you'll see your interest expense, and you had a little bit of interest income. So overall, the $73,610 change for the year in your enterprise fund. Your average expenses in your enterprise fund totaled $45,094 for 2018. And if we took the cash that you had in the enterprise fund at the end of the year, you could cover over 24 months of expenses. So you're, as far as being liquidity and your reserves and what you could cover, you're doing very well in that regard. By the end of 2018, your unrestricted fund balance was 1.8 times of your total operating revenues for the enterprise fund. Any questions on that?
Just that our enterprise funds are required to cover the expenses of that particular fund without any
Yes.
subsidy from our general fund. Is that correct?
That's what you would want.
And so
yes.
all of our prices for water and garbage and so on are basically billed at cost so that we cover our costs.
You are moving your costs, yes. Yes. So I know last year was kind of a different kind of year for you all, but I'll say this on the final note. I think my hat's off to you for kind of keeping everything steady. During a transition period like that, sometimes you see money being spent where it might not need to be spent. You all just kind of held the reins tight. It looked like to me you had less than $10,000 that you spent in capital assets, so there was not much expenditure there. So it was a year of change, and I think you all did well in that year. So, any questions for me?
No, I appreciate how you present everything, put in percentages and things like that. People can understand the percentage differences rather than just not
The
very
numbers. On page 13 in your audit are the notes, and those do give more detail. It will outline the loans that you have, it will outline your receivables, it will outline your capital assets. So I encourage you to at least give that a look as you're going through. If you have any questions, by all means, my number is on the front of that blue cover. Feel free to contact me with any questions that you may have, or let Ella know, and she will make that contact. But I thank you, Ella, and your staff for how easy it is to work with you all, so I thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Now on the next item is going to be the truck bid. Ella?
Hi, Yes, sir. As you see in the packet, I had put the water truck out for bid. We only received one bid for this truck, and I just wanted to go ahead and give this to you, and we'll place it on the agenda for next week. No other responses, no other bids were received. We received the bid for $24,490 from Duval. I've already talked with him, we're still looking at 6 to 8 week delivery. We definitely need another truck. So James and his crew can go about and do their work as they need to. This is a budgeted item that we did have in the budget this year, so I'll be presenting this for your approval at the next meeting.
Ellen, do you know if that truck is suitable for snow plowing?
It is, yes, sir. I did check into that, and it is, yes, sir. That, we went with a shorter bed truck, so we could utilize that for the smaller areas, because that was an issue we did discuss, getting something bigger that felt this would serve two purposes.
Were there any other issues with the old truck?
Well, James, actually what we'll do is we'll rotate James into this truck, and the water department truck will still continue to use it as we do. That's the truck that Neil normally drives. I don't know if you've seen that truck lately, but
Is that the one that we looked at and decided to go?
yeah, we'll use it as backup as needed,
Okay.
is what we'll do with it. We'll keep it, until we can replace a few more along the line.
Thank you.
Does what we have in the budget cover what we're spending?
Yes, sir.
That's
It
what
does. Yes, sir, it does.
I thought that it
Yes, sir.
ended up in there.
Yes, sir, it does. It is in the budget.
Okay, Dog Drive,
What about number 4? Want to do number 4? And this number 4?
oh,
The Elmwood
excuse
program.
me,
Okay.
I'm trying to push you through
You're
here.
just trying to get through, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I just sent you all a copy of the letter that I received from the Georgia Department of Transportation in reference to the LMIG application. I've already been in touch with them. I have attended the LMIG meeting. I'm very familiar with this program, and we will get this submitted as soon as we can determine, what our route is going to be. So I'll be sending out some emails, getting some priorities set up so we can move forward with this. There is the match of the $34,000. This is normally, as it says, it's 30%, so that's our match to come up with it. So I'll just be getting with you all so we can move forward with that project. Also, I'll just go on into Knob Drive, because this actually relates to 2020, 2019 LMIG Triple E money, which I have applied for. I have heard back from GDOT, and they have requested some additional information, and I provided that to them yesterday. This is to help possibly pay for some of the expenses with our Knob Drive updates. Also too, I talked with the contractor yesterday. He possibly will be on site this week. He plans to mobilize this week to be ready to get started. So hopefully, his anticipated timeline is 2 weeks. So as soon as we can get this done, I know everyone will be happy to get this project moving forward and get that road back open.
Ellen, is there any chance that the LMIG money will fall through if the county's service delivery strategy issue
No,
is
sir,
not
not at
solved?
this point, no, sir, no, sir. Because that has been released to my knowledge, and because I
Once
did
they went
ask,
into the
yeah,
mitigation thing, was.
yes, sir.
all right, but the public hearing on the proposed polling place change,
Okay, can we do the fire department thing first, folks?
This is just actually going over that will happen.
Just an announcement.
Yeah, this is just saying, the public hearing will
This is
be
all,
at the
it's
next
nothing.
council meeting. What this is about, the county has recommended, due to the new machines that they will have, that we change our polling location from City Hall, because in 2020, our City Hall will not accommodate the new machines. it's too small to even get the 2 machines in there. So they're recommending that we follow suit with the other cities and move everything to Clayton for people to go vote. As we presented previously, a good percentage of our citizens here in Sky Valley, they go to Clayton to vote early or do absentee ballots. So we'll be, having that public hearing at the council meeting next week.
Can I say one thing about that as well? One thing that came out of the meeting that we didn't have with the board of elections was that when cities have a polling place in their city and it's on an election day, the county also has to have their area set up. So there's no way for them to prevent sometimes someone double voting. And that was one of their requests, was that for better security and control and the amount of times that someone can actually vote and they also duplicate their vote on accident, that they have one polling place. That was one of the biggest things that they stressed to everybody that was at the meeting, was that when you wonder why things can happen, it's because of that. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Thank you. All right, as we move on, we're going to get our illustrious fire chief. There he is.
Thanks for such an introduction.
He's a very quiet man.
Yeah, I'm real quiet. I'm shy too, so I'm very embarrassed. I know some of y'all's faces, some of you I don't. I'm the chief of Sky Valley Fire Department, and I've been on it since 1979 with Moody. And we've got a situation, I'm sorry.
Jamie, they want you to get out here so you can be on camera.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'd like to.
I'm trying to get you.
How about where? Over here or there?
Got you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, we've got a situation that we've had for several years up on Winding Ridge. I don't know whether everybody's familiar with it or not. I threw a sketch together real fast like. I didn't do the scale or anything, but you can maybe read it. I show a few. Maybe we'll take it, pass it around, whatever. Okay, what it is, if you've ever been up in there, what I've come today for is to explain the situation we've got. When you go up Winding Ridge, I don't know whether everybody's familiar with it or not, but when you get up to the cul-de-sac, turn around there. Okay, that's the end of the water system. Okay, we've got y'all put in a water tank years ago that sits right above it, and you've got a 6-inch pipe, which you can see on the diagram there, from the well up to where the very first hydrant is there and forks the road. Going up, Southern Breeze? Okay, we've got water to there, but what we have, no way of getting water from there on up to the top, and there's 4 houses on the top. Okay, what we've done, y'all have done a lot of work up there, and Moody's familiar with all this. We put a water tank up there and a hydrant. Okay, we put 2 standpipes up on top. The only way we can get the water to the top is we have to put a pumper at the junction of Seabreeze and Winding Ridge. Okay, and by doing that, you notice a real sharp turn there. We've had several drills up there, and Valley is our family native mutual aid force, and they won't even drive a truck up there. I ended up having to drive a truck around the turn because you have to turn around and back up. But anyway, what I've come today to present was we'd like to be able to get a corner down at the bottom to where we can put a building like a little pump house or something there. We're asking permission to get the land. We will supply the building. We will put the building up to build it to y'all's specs or whatever. But we have special tools, special hose that we've made that we have to hook to our trucks, to put another truck up on top to pump the water to the houses if we have a fire on the very top. And so in order to do that, say if we get a call tonight at 11 o'clock when them houses are on fire, someone has to go to the fire station and round up all this stuff that we have on the shelf and and hopefully we have all the fittings we need, and that's probably 30-minute loss of time. If we have a neatly built building, like the pump houses, whatever, we build specs, whatever, we'll pay for the building. we'd like to have all of our stuff stored in that, so when we do get a call, if Highlands by the chance, they help us also, if they came, or Maddie came before we got there, everything would be in a building, locked up, ready to use. We don't care about the power, we don't care about water in it. The only thing it would have to be is we've got to make sure it's mouse proof because of our hoses and all. And we might put a battery operated light or something to see. But that's what I've come to ask today, and it was a short notice, or I'd have drawn a better map on scale because a lot of people don't know it, but we have a real high elevation from where our first hydrant is up the top. And sometime if you like, go over there and just look at it and you see what we're getting at. We've had this problem I've been involved in fire department since '79, we've had this problem ever since, and luckily, we haven't had any fires up there that we haven't been able to take care of. So does anybody have any questions for me? I hope everybody understands what we're looking for and what we're asking for.
What I would like, what I would like is just to have a cost factor, then you got cost factor to the city on this, where you're building the building,
But, Bob,
we gotta check.
let me answer that first. So what the fire department needs is permission to build the building on the right of way.
On the land.
There is no cost to the city. The fire department will build it to the city specs. In other words,
On the
if they
right.
want the building, if the city would like the building to match one of the existing newer pump houses that we have with
Okay.
the stone and,
Could you mark the area
Yes, sir.
that you would like
Yes,
up
sir.
there so
Yes,
that
sir.
we can take a look at it?
There may be some excavation needing to be done on account of the bank, but we'd like to set it back, where it's not in danger of somebody hitting it. And it'd be, we'll build it to suit whatever y'all have, it's kind of added to the looks. But we're gonna put the expense out, we're just
Yeah.
wanting to get the land.
Okay, you just mark it out so we know where it's
Okay, I'll
going.
go mark it. Yes, who else had a question?
It was pretty much done. Well, how much land do you need to build this? And
10 by
whose
10
land-
maybe?
And whose land it is and the cost involved.
The cost is gonna be on us, but I don't know.
No, the cost to purchase the land that is not
Right.
to be built.
Well, I don't know what your right-of-ways are, how far your right-of-way goes, or if you can build on your right-of-way or whatever. But that's something that, I don't know I guess some of y'all have to find out who owns the land.
But we need to know how much land you need.
Well, I can mark it off, and I'll give you the footage on it. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. We currently have a protection class 6, I believe,
Yes, ma'am.
and not complying to doing this, will that affect our protection class?
Well, if the ISO ever came in and checked us, yes.
Well, then we need to do it. Oh,
We
sorry.
really need to, we've really been very quiet about it and not, when I do the ISO inspections, we sort of kind of try to avoid that situation because everybody's supposed to have the same amount, and we have really put hard. I've been his chief for 4 years, or 5 years, this is my 5th year, and I've been through 5 inspections already. I mean, I'm the lucky one that gets to go through all of them, and I'm really trying to improve everything the best I can, to do, to make everybody more comfortable. So, yes, sir.
Did I understand you to say, or did I mishear, that you'd also like for us to pay for one of the attachments from, no?
No, we've already got the tools right there, we just need a place to store them.
So basically what we're doing is we're putting in a pump, so instead of a dry pipe system.
No, all I'm asking now is a 10 by 10 or 15 by 15 square piece of property, we'll take care of everything else. We've already got everything in place, we can't put no more pumps because we've got the truck, we use the truck, we've got to have, we're just looking for a place to store it too. Is no expense.
And so in addition to the pumper, there's another truck that's actually able to get up. the
Yes,
side.
we take the truck up the top. We can't get a ladder truck up there under no means, but eventually we might, but a good driver can get up there. Now in snowy weather, it's tough. That's just something we have to deal with. I don't know how often the people come up there, how often they're here, but, we do give fire protection and we want to make sure we're on top of it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
If not, thank you very much, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Tom?
Sir.
And for you, I'll see you at lunch. You're buying steak, aren't you?
That's right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're, I'm Tommy.
Nice to meet you.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Next time, we're going to adjourn for our executive session. Have a motion?
Please state the purpose, I'm sorry.
Please, pardon?
Please state the purpose, Mr. Mayor. Again, please state the purpose of the
Litigation.
Litigation.
So moved.
Pending or potential?
Second.
The move and second.
Got it.
Meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, can I have your, make a point of attention to this, before you can go into executive session, is this a work session that y'all are having right now?
Yes.
You'll need to call a special meeting, have your council go into a special call meeting, and then call for an executive session before you can enter one.
Can I make a motion? Can I make a motion that we go into a special call meeting?
We don't have the announcement requirements, right? Is there a motion on the floor?
If that's what we need to do, I'll second the motion.
I need a opinion from the attorney.
Is there, I didn't know we were going into executive session. Is there something urgent we need to talk about, or can this wait till the next week?
Well, we invited,
Like that.
we wanted to get him to be able to talk to the council about this SDS suit.
Because, yeah, this is a work session, and probably it's going to be a special call meeting, probably should advertise this. So, could you come back next week, or maybe talk to the council members individually?
I can, this is actually, you know, this isn't anything that's wrong,
Yeah.
but this is just something that the city of Clayton's gone through. You can call for a special call meeting
Is
to
it?
go into executive session. You just can't go into executive session straight
From the work
session.
Okay.
So that's my only point.
So you called him on the day of a special call meeting?
You can, yes, sir. I would rather not participate in the illegally called executive session. I've done that before, it's not too fun, so.
I'll make a motion that we go into a special, adjourn this meeting and go into a specially called meeting here in public.
Do that. Just adjourn this meeting.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting and go into a special call meeting.
Have a second?
Step outside, I'll say that.
Emergency.
Now I'll make a motion that we go into
Now we
executive
have a
session
motion
to
to go into
discuss
executive
litigation.
session.
I'll just do it, I'll say it.
Have a second on
I mean,
that?
if this is, yeah, I mean, this is, you're gonna have a special call meeting unless it's an emergency, you gotta run
You
notices.
guys run notices.
I don't think you can have a specially called meeting unless there's been an emergency, without running notices. So, I mean, I think the mayor of Clayton can speak to each of y'all individually and tell you what he wants to do without running afoul of anything, or he can come back next week.
That's fine, and I would suggest that, you know, you don't take my advice, you have legal counsel if that's what you're.
I mean, I just want to be on the safe side, because I think if you're gonna have a meeting, unless it's an emergency, you have to run notices and everything like that. And I don't want-
Well, part of the time it is.
Well, if it is, then we can come back, you know, tomorrow, and later this week, if it is true.
No, tomorrow is it.
Or maybe Thursday.
Yes. Really?
Y'all tell me what you want to do, and I'll do it.
All right.
This meeting adjourned.
I'd like to have a motion to adjourn this meeting. Move to second, all in favor? Aye. sure.
Several other bills that go ahead.
All right, call this public hearing. To order for the Reagan County Joint Comprehensive Plan Speaker, Adam Haley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to stand and move around a bit. My apologies. Are you recording still?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, you missed me sometime. Sorry. First off, let me say thank you for coming out and participating. This whole process is about me hearing from you guys, and a lot of what we're going to be doing in a few minutes will regress to just me asking questions and prompting stuff from you folks. My name is Adam Pizel. I'm the planning director at the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission, which is the regional government office that serves as part of the state, and we're assisting Rabun County and the municipalities with the update of your comprehensive plan. Now, my apologies, I normally have a PowerPoint slideshow that goes with this, and it hit me halfway up here that Miss Ella was kind enough to tell me that it was the chapel, but I was thinking the chalet, and they had a wall last time that we did this. So, I'm going to wing this. But, I've got enough that you'll be able to take away what you need, and like I said, we're going to be getting questions that I'm laying before you guys to get information from you folks. The document that we're working on, the Joint Comprehensive Plan, it's one of the things that is required of local governments in order to maintain their full eligibility for funding and assistance from the state and federal government. And the idea is all about community planning. In this sense, looking toward the future and trying to be thoughtful in your actions and be more efficient with your decisions. You plan for your retirement, you plan for trips, you plan for big festivities, birthdays, etc. And if you're running a business, you have to have a business plan when you go get loans and such. You want the same thing in terms of responsibility from your local government on behalf of your tax dollars and capital projects that they pursue. So this document is one that every 5 years it gets updated, just like we're doing now. You pause, you take stock of the state of your community, what the conditions are, what the trends are, what are the influences and factors and resources with which you have to deal, and say, what is our vision? Is it still the same? What's changed? And then in order to achieve that vision, what do we need to do to make sure we're making the most with our resources? When communities have to make that decision, do we spend the money on the new fire truck or the park? Do we fix up the school or repair the roads? Ultimately, we can't do everything we want no matter how much we want the best for our community, so we have to pick and choose. And the idea is that this document is where at least every once in a while we paused, made that inventory and said, this is the best direction we want to go for our community. This is a consensus vision for our community, and here are the things that we need to do to get there. Now, this document is one that we did 5 years ago, and we're working on the update. So a lot of what we're doing is basically asking ourselves, is what's in that old document still valid? What needs to change? What needs to be brought up to date? What everyone needs to know about the document is that there's largely three main parts to it. One is the vision. It's the statement that has first a bold vision statement on behalf of the long-term aspects of the future that represents the various values that you want to preserve or attain on behalf of your community. And there's one for each community in there, the county as a whole, as well as Tulalip Falls, Mountain City, etc. And on behalf of Sky Valley, it's largely just a paragraph, and in this case a few pictures. It's the first filter that you're using to say, if we have to make a key decision, what do we want to make sure we're representing? In this case, the city of Sky Valley is a small and active North Georgia mountain community of both primary and secondary residences, surrounded by the beautiful Nantahala National Forest, striving to grow the population and tourism while preserving the sense of a quiet, safe, family-oriented resort community. The city of Sky Valley will encourage economic growth via the expansion of recreational, residential, and business opportunities compatible with the community's natural beauty and serenity. The goal is to affirm your commitment to being largely a residential community of a certain type, and that you're not trying to deviate from that character. So when you're deciding on certain things to pursue, major capital projects, pursuing new development, etc., do those things enhance this vision or run against the grain? The idea of having this spelled out is to make it easier for all decision makers to understand, all right, this is what we should be trying to achieve or retain as far as our character. So one of your homework assignments from today will be making sure that what we have as far as the vision statement works for Sky Valley, or if we need to amend that. A copy of this document in whole is available off of the county's website. So you can go there and download it. There should be a copy in City Hall. And if you can't find one from either place, you can email me, and my contact information should be on the agenda that's out there, or you can get it from me afterwards. But that's one of the things you want to look at and make sure that, did we get that right? Do we need to expand on it? Do we need to add to it, or have things changed? And we will discuss that further. Once we have that vision, then we can say, in order to achieve that, what are the things that we need to do to make that happen? If you're a community like Tallulah Falls that's trying to instill a little bit of change and try to lure economic development, they have to pursue certain things in terms of utility improvements. Look at some of their land use code in order to make that happen. So for Sky Valley, with regard to keeping the same what you want to keep the same, or changing what you want to change, what are the things that you need to do, either in your investments, your policies, your programs, etc., to make that happen? It might be that the vision is fine and what you're doing is fine, in which case, keep on keeping on, as they say. That's fine. It might be that we're deciding, things are changing, there's a new opportunity on the horizon, we want to adjust. The reason we go through this process is we just want to make sure. So with that vision, then we can state for certain, or with more certainty at least, these are the needs and opportunities that we have to address, which we will do later on in the document. The second big element is known as the community development strategy. And that looks things in terms of the physical nature on the ground with regard to land use policies or where those capital improvements are going to go. If you're a community the size of, say, Clayton, you might have certain areas that, this is the older neighborhood that's in need of some attention. This is where we need to invest in fixing up utilities and parks. If you are the county, you might be saying, this is the area where we have traffic congestion or all the accidents are happening. So for Sky Valley, it's a matter of looking around the community and say, well, this part we want to keep the same. This is the part that we need to put some investment in. Last time we were here, we were talking about possibly annexing territory or looking at new development on one side of the community that would bring in maybe a small hotel or enhance the conference facility. How would that change the makeup of the community? If you need to invest in capital improvements like more water or sewer, or where is the new cell tower going to go? Trying to figure those things out in a where sense, that's what that section is talking about. How does that all work harmoniously? And then for those things that are big ticket items, what's it going to take to make that happen? The third component is the bottom line of the document. That's the implementation program. If we've just gone through this exercise and said, here's the grand vision for Sky Valley, and here's that list of grocery items that we have to pick up in order to make that become a reality, what's our plan for making them happen? Who's going to do what? When are they going to do it? How much is it going to cost? There's three parts to that. One is a list of items that looks like this. This is the work program. So this is the one that was left over from 5 years ago. We said back then, all these singular, unique capital projects that we want to pursue in the next 5 years, they're going to go in this list. And it's going to be the action item, the projected cost, what are some of the funding source options, and who's responsible for doing it. We're not saying that Sky Valley is now on the hook for all this, but what we're doing is we're saying if we're going to go grocery shopping, how much might all those things cost so that when we get there, and we only have so many dollars to spend, we have to pick and choose. Are we getting the fruit tray, or are we just getting a couple apples? Well, it's the same thing here. With all these different options that we want to pursue, are we getting the new park and a walking trail, or are we spending something more on the chalet? Do we have to repair the dam, or are we adding to the sign and the tennis courts? Whatever the projects are that you guys are considering goes in this list, so that way you can begin looking ahead and saying, for these things that might fall out of our normal budgeting available funds, how are we going to accommodate it? What are we having to rely on for SPLOST? What are we having to rely on for grants or loans? Now, what do we have to kick out another year or two because we can't afford it now because we have a different priority? So the work program is that punchline of the document. It's making sure that you've looked at all the things that you want to take on and figure out what to do. There might be a few things which go into another section called policies and long-term objectives. We know we're going to need a new fire engine, but it's not for like 7 or 8 years. So we're going to mark it here so that way we don't forget, and we can start figuring out what we do about getting the funding for it. Things like that. Then there's the report of accomplishments, which takes the items from the previous year's, or previous edition's work program, and says what's the status of those things. So one of the things that Ms. Ella will be doing on behalf of Sky Valley, and what each of the communities has been doing, is taking this exact list of the one from 2014, all these items that we said we wanted to do, and they're going to be giving me a list. What's the status of it? Is it complete? Is it postponed? Is it in progress? Or has it been canceled? Obviously, we would love to see everything complete or in progress, but that never happens because a lot of the things on the list are kind of wish lists. You might be getting more funds from SPLOST. You might be getting that special grant or loan from GEMA. And you want to retain the eligibility and have those in the document. That's why they're there. You keep that possibility open. But you do want to at least see some success. You want to see some progress. This becomes a tool whereby you guys, the citizens, can look at the elected officials and you guys can track yourself and monitor your progress. Did we do everything that we said we wanted to do or could do within our means? If yes, did we get the results we wanted? Great. And then we keep doing it. If not, if the results didn't measure up, what do we need to change? What do we need to do differently? Take any sport in the intermission in between innings or halftime, and you figure out if your plan A is working or not, and if not, you switch to plan B. So that's what we're doing. So we take the items from the previous work program and we say, what's the status? And then we move forward. Anything that's still in progress or postponed to the next 5 years, we can add it to this one and keep trying again. So that brings us to where we are today. That's the nature of the document that we're working on behalf of the county and all the municipalities. And so with regard to Sky Valley, we start with asking ourselves, knowing that we'll be getting the report on progress with the actual items. But my first question to you folks is, what are the values that you think you want to retain going forward in terms of the vision for the community? If you were going to close your eyes and flash forward 20 years, and you're back here in Sky Valley, what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What are the important things that you want to see retained or changed? This is the audience participation.
I wholly support the current vision statement, that it is an active, living community for all ages. I think our previous administration added some activities that appeal to both young and older residents and visitors.
Okay.
Now we're looking at more infrastructure that is failing. So that's more on the punch list. But as far as the vision, I am totally on board with what we have.
Okay. You folks behind the table get to speak as well if you like. Yes.
Who actually makes the decision of what we're going to be doing going forward? There was a survey recently sent out.
It's a good question, and thank you for mentioning the survey. I forgot to mention that. There's a link to the survey, which I think is available on the agenda if you're one of the lucky few that got a copy. If not, you can go to the Raven County website, and there's a link there. There's an online survey that you can take. If you haven't done so, please do so. It only takes about 15 minutes. It does include sections where you can write in open response answers. You're not just limited to multiple choice. But it gives us an idea of what you're looking at. The material that we collect, everything that we receive is information that goes into the process. We're not just saying that whatever the survey is gospel. No, we're taking that. There's an advisory committee that I'm working with that has membership from each community that's participating. They help guide making sure that we get a document done that meets minimum standards that goes before everyone. B, the ultimate draft update is laid out in front of the public, again, for view and consumption and open comment, and that will ultimately become before these guys and the city council at Clayton and Mountain City, etc., for ultimate submittal to the state for approval and then adoption. So it is a group writing effort guided by the advisory committee that still must be passed before the elected officials, and again, it is open for public comment during the process before it is ultimately adopted. Does that answer your question?
Almost.
Yes.
When will this happen?
Over the next couple months.
So we need, if we have a vision, like our infrastructure, our roads are in really bad shape, you know.
Part of why I'm here today.
Okay,
Yes.
I mean, then we can make that statement, then it's up to, when you make the recommendations, goes to the council, and then they make the decision?
Well, like I said, when we collect that list of needs and opportunities, we'll put together the first cut of this.
Okay.
And we'll look at it and say, okay, here's all the projects that we like, whoa, $80 million worth of work there. We have to pick and choose. In which case, everybody's going to look at it, and against the vision statement, which things are we going to pull together off of this grocery list that's going to give us the best party for the dollar?
Okay.
So, but everything, we want it all mentioned, so that way it's there that we know, when things change, if we have the opportunity that we can, add that extra mile worth of road repaving, great. And then that we don't forget it, that when we come back 5 years from now, hey, don't forget, we said we were concerned about the dam breach and other stuff, we gotta fix it. And so, yes, that's part of why we do this every 5 years is, hey, let's hear, you first and then the lady back.
Quick question, who are the representatives from Sky Valley? We don't know.
Who are the names?
Helen Flobble and, what was the other person's name?
Dick Wilcox.
Yeah, Dick Wilcox.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And at any time, if you want, you can send me a comment via email about this. I can't promise a response at 2 a.m. if you have an epiphany at that hour, but feel free. Yes, ma'am.
That was my question.
Yes.
In looking ahead, one of the things I've done on our street is talked about the new 911 signs, which are wonderful and green, and any ambulance can see them. Much of our city still has the old, rotten white ones that are leaning, etc. So I contacted the county, and this is my concern. The county has a wonderful committee, or department, pardon me, of 911 mapping, consisting of 2 people. And the response from Sky Valley was so overwhelming of people improving and putting in the new signs that that department couldn't even begin to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make waves by calling a county commissioner and saying, these guys can't do it. My question is, in the future, I would like to see county assets and county workers and county departments being more aware of the city of Sky Valley and responding instead of telling us we're overworked and you're not a priority.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is that when Sky Valley proposes or asks something from the county, I would like a little more enthusiastic response.
Okay. And as you can
And it's
imagine,
working beautifully, and these guys are great. And I want you to hear
Right.
that our street is very patient. They paid for these in February. We may have them by the end of August or September. And we're not, but what I'm saying is perhaps the wheels of progress could be greased so it works a little bit better. Not that they ignore us.
no, that's great. And the more we hear the good and the bad,
Yes.
it's information for the decision makers. So as I tell them, whether they say it out loud or not, the more they hear, the better. Even if it's a complaint or a gripe, because at least they understand the pulse of what's happening and it can help them understand what's the way to make decisions. That's why we do this. And one thing that you might want to know, after the first few meetings that we've had, I spent 3 hours with folks from Raven Gap last night. I probably should have just stayed in the hotel. One of the things that was first and foremost on everyone's mind after what Raven County has been enduring for the past several years was, please make sure there are strong statements to imbue a stronger sense of coordination and communication among all the governments. So that will be put in there probably within vision statements. At the very least, there'll be certain policy recommendations throughout, which should go a long way towards that end. So any other thoughts right now as far as like the general vision of the community? Yes.
If I came back in 20 years or 30 years, there are some problems that I hope that we would have addressed between now and then. Starting, and again, this community's got a lot of positive things, but in some ways we're at the mercy of the national economy because we're basically a second home community. People don't live in our houses as long as they do in suburban Atlanta, so we have more turnover, which means we're more vulnerable to things like the recession of 2008 and 2009. We had a big drop in property values that even today we barely started to recover. We bottomed out several years ago, and I think we're just beginning to see the first upticks. Well, who cares? We should care because our housing stock is in a very moist, humid area. We're up in the mountains. Not everybody gets to their homes to do the maintenance. Family situations change. People can afford to hold them instead of sell them. The big problem, though, is that our housing stock will, in coming years, tend to become dated because of lack of new construction. Well, what does it take to get new construction going? Well, I think property values have to be higher. If old housing is a bargain compared to new construction, people are going to buy the existing houses, which is great because that's the way you get property values up. But there's that long run problem. You know, a lot of people are upgrading, putting in, new countertops, keeping things up to date, and a lot of homes are just being ignored because they're not being used. And that's part of, what our community's going through. The same thing can be said about Sky Valley as a whole. We were developed as a resort 40 years ago. A lot of things have gotten better over that time. But one of the things that's gotten better over the time are the other new resorts coming online. And I think we need to be competitive with those. Hilton Head has a substantial budget every year to upgrade community facilities. And I think we need to look at doing that here. We're up in the mountains, people come here for the nature. We've got lots of undeveloped real estate. I think there's potential for hiking trails, nature reserves. We can do more in terms of city parks than we've done. Now, but the issue is, how do you get the property values up? Is it going to be a promotional campaign? Is it going to be a social media campaign? Because we don't have an unlimited budget. How are we going to replace all the people that see Sky Valley for the first time, that used to see Sky Valley in the winter for the ski slopes? How are we going to get them up here now, if not some sort of promotional campaign? Could we bring in some new project that would bring people into Sky Valley? A convention center type thing, a hotel type thing, that would support both the golf course, but more importantly, get people to see Sky Valley for the first time, because once people really see Sky Valley, they like it. And, you know, maybe it's a gradual process of spending vacations here before they buy a home, but ultimately that's the goal. We don't have any property, we don't own any property. All the property in Sky Valley that doesn't have houses on it or isn't bought by investors belongs to a developer who's no longer interested in developing Sky Valley. So if someone wanted to do a project here, we don't have any real estate to put it on. In fact, our trash compactor is on a lease. Our overlook, which is the first stop for Sky Valley, our front door, is owned by the developer who has no plans to do anything. So if I came back in 20 or 30 years, I would hope to see that either there was a new developer or that the community stepped up to buy out the developer. Right now, we walk on eggshells because our leases for the critical things like our trash compactor could be revoked or closed off at any moment if the council does anything that might be perceived as adversely affecting his business interests.
Okay.
By the same token, we have a sewer study, which we've never had a public hearing on, because we don't have access to funding.
It was presented in public.
Yeah, it was presented in public, and the copies were distributed, but we never really had a serious formal discussion about it.
Well, there's
We
nothing
postponed
happening.
it because we don't have any funding, and I understand that. But we don't want to put in a sewer first before we figure out what we want to do with some of these potentially developable properties that could start funneling people into Sky Valley. Now, it may be everything's going to be fine regardless of what we do, but these look to me like future long-term vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't know about consensus on this, but
I saw your hand first.
Okay, well, I agree with you, Jim, and I think to increase our property values and to offer amenities that we're going to need for future residents to be attractive to our community, we are going to have to look into the possibility of sewer because our septic systems are starting to fail. And I've heard and read that the county will probably not let us install more septic systems. Also, I think we need to look at a better internet system of some kind because what we have now is pitiful. And with younger people coming into our valley, which we hope they will, they need internet services like crazy to work out of their homes, to watch TV, to watch movies, whatever. So we need a better system there.
Okay. Yeah.
Ditto everything Jim said. One of my main concerns is all the property owned by the Merrill Trust.
Yeah.
I don't understand it all, but I feel like something should be done to where he's not interested at all. How can we acquire that property and do something with it and to make future buildable homes on all this property just sitting around rotting?
Okay.
I have a vision that Sky Valley is just a drop in the bucket of Raven County and northeastern Georgia. And Sky Valley has a unique problem with the developer. But if Sky Valley is going to grow, you better look at Julep Farms, Raven Manor, Kingwood. The whole area has to grow because Sky Valley in and of itself, this little bitty city, cannot grow without the community around us growing. And that means better schools, better libraries, all this stuff. So I think you have to look at the county and the surrounding counties to try and make the mountains of northeast Georgia grow. Because Sky Valley is only one of several cities that have this summer population.
And one thing I certainly encourage you to think of, a lot of times the things that you're having to deal with are not necessarily just within your boundaries. A lot of times the solutions you might find aren't something exclusive within your boundaries as well. If you happen to find an attraction or an amenity that becomes the lure to get more folks coming up, but it happens to be just next door, yet you get some of the residual effects, you might get what you want without having to, you know, take on something more than what you think. So don't think just exclusively within the boundaries. You know, again, think outside of it that way and realize you're part of that bigger picture, including the solutions and partners that you're going to pull into the discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Following on Barbara's comments, I think it's really important that we do business with the locals. I mean, yes, I know you have to go out and get bids for other things, but to support our community is where it all begins. I mean, we've got to have community support to grow, and, you know, we have, what, over 300 registered voters. You know, we want more people to buy into our community. We don't want to be the headlines of the newspaper of negative publicity every other week. We need to have positive, you know, news about Sky Valley. Sky Valley's opened a new trail, and we have horseback riding up here now. I mean, you know, things positive, support the locals. You know, if we need to put a penny tax on something, do it. I mean, we just, because I know it all takes money. But, yeah, that's my comment.
Okay.
I would like to see more support for our Public Works Department, both staffing, equipment, funding, so they can do the work that they know needs to be done and they are struggling to do with broken equipment or missing equipment. There was a depreciation fund set up that does not seem to be used to replace equipment. So they can clean the ditches, replace the culverts, repair the roads,
Get rid of the leaves.
clear the leaves, clear the branches.
James, do you want to get in on that? That's
He's
more
saying
kind of
here.
an internal budgeting
That's more a
issue.
management problem.
That's not really a Raven County Joint Comprehensive Plan, but
That is a punch list item. And it is part of the vision that we take care of what we have.
well, it seems to me you're insinuating that we're up here handicapping or hamstringing James and not being able to get his job done.
Yeah, that's not that. We do have some issues with some equipment, you know, our equipment has got a little age on it. But, you know, we deal with it, we fix it, and we do what we can.
Yeah, we got a bid on a new truck, just got a price on a new leaf vacuum.
Yes.
So I hope you can appreciate we are working on things, but it doesn't happen as quite as quick as it does in the private sector.
These guys do an amazing job, so thank you for supporting them.
Yeah.
In an unrelated note, he's having a party, bring your own shovel.
A BYOS party.
But again, the things, when we hear this, sometimes what we're learning is that the issue might be a matter of communication and understanding.
Yeah.
Tweaking policy and helping people understand what's going on, maybe that isn't, you know, one of the things that needs to be addressed. Other times we know that and one of the reasons we go through this exercise is that for a lot of these things with regards to facilities and equipment, there are not the line item budgets that are really in place to take care of them, or they really are insufficient, in which case we need to figure out a way to somehow think outside the box to get stuff done or to address the needs. Do you have a long-term budget that says, okay, this truck is going to be needing replaced at this mileage or around this year, and this backhoe needs to, you know, do you have something?
Yes, we do. We have a 5-year
Okay.
budget. Yes, we do.
But it's only 5 years,
It's
right?
only 5 years at this point.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I know one thing that we're working on with a number of other communities is we basically, like Dawson County's fire department recently, we took every truck, equipment list, and fire station, what is the life expectancy and when will they need to reinvest in either replacing or expanding that? And it goes, you know, 20, 25 years out, but it gives them an idea. It's like, okay, you know, 2024, we're going to be hit with 2 trucks that we got to take care of. And again, then they're armed with information for the decision making. Hand about to go.
I'm going to say this again. We have this bicentennial, Raven County, terrific stuff going on. The little pamphlets are nowhere to be seen up here. I think they're at the club. But the bicentennial runs through December of this year. And again, communication and interaction. And Sky Valley should have people going down to these things so we can tell what we've got going on up here. There are tons of things going around in this county and the joint counties. It's communication and looking beyond your own nose to see what's available. Botanical gardens. There's all kinds of stuff. But it seems that it's almost like I'm looking at me, mine, mine, and what is yours doesn't affect me. And it's part marketing, it's part communication, and it's part being a community citizen versus a neighbor. Thank you.
I agree with you, Barbara, and I think that would be wonderful if we would investigate a welcome/information center.
True. By golly, that's good.
That is accessible to people in wheelchairs.
And on the main road.
Let me shift tack a little.
Something that's probably outside the scope of the joint comprehensive plan would be, when I first moved here, I heard a lot of people that were part-time residents. And I did some research, and there are communities where there are large part-time residents that have petitioned and won the right to vote in local elections. And I think that that's one of the issues up here. There's a lot of people that live in Florida or Atlanta or Tucson or wherever, but they can't vote here because this isn't their permanent residence. And I think that that would engender more of a community feel, because you can live someplace on national elections but still vote on what's happening in Sky Valley. I don't know if that fits here, but I think that would go a long way towards giving everybody a voice, because a lot of people don't feel they have a voice.
I want to keep us moving for the essence of time and make sure I hit a few things as far as what I want to make sure I get from folks. But one idea that I'll explore with folks later, and I'm going to plant just because you said this. There's another county that I grew up near in, not grew up, but went to a lot in New York, where my family's from. And they make a point that of the 5 cities within that county, each one hosts a festival each year, and the cross promotion, you're encouraged to make the circuit to visit each one. And maybe there's something you can do here in Raven County in that same vein. Find the little festivals or parades or something that you encourage everyone to go to each one, and then get the folks that are behind each one also to support the others as well.
They do it. It's called Fifth Sunday. 5 churches do it. And every 5th Sunday of the month, they have a great big sing-along, heart-along, no sermon, and eat, which is why we come.
Food is always a big draw. Okay, so thinking exclusively in terms of positives, what are the strengths of your community, or what are those assets that you say we want to preserve? This is what we want to keep the same about Sky Valley.
Nature.
Natural beauty.
Natural beauty.
Yeah.
I think that's probably unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Security, safety.
We have a lot of crime,
Traffic.
Exquisite mountain vistas.
Yeah, those criminal bears, man, you gotta watch them. Active living.
Hiking.
birds.
Wildlife.
I would say diversity, and that means a lot of things to a lot of people, but we are largely a second home community, and I think our housing market would be more stable if we had more long-term residents, whether they they already live in Raven County, or whether they're going to be retirees that would live here. But I don't know how to diversify in terms of age groups, but if we had more younger folks, that might help stabilize our housing market. But I think the vision could be, this is a great place to retire compared to most places. The winters here are really, really easy and pleasant. The views are best.
He's looking for single words.
Well,
Climate.
I'll take
How can you say climate? You just compare our climate with anywhere and I'll take it.
Thank you.
I-
Yeah, that's
Even the
great.
weather
That's right at the
splits
top.
around our little mountain. Watch the radar.
Yes.
Watch the radar when you got weather coming in. And not always, but a lot of times it just splits right around.
Our office is in Gainesville, and we always appreciate when we come here or north of the mountains like Hiawassee, because that 10-degree temperature change.
Even the ones coming
What else? What are some assets of your community?
I think our emergency
It's amazing.
systems are, work very well with the police and the fire and ambulance.
Okay.
The
How about
cell
winding
tower.
roads that force people to slow down? It's good for your blood pressure to be up here.
That's for sure.
The new cell tower.
Yes, and
There are two, actually, one for phones and one for the emergency communication. Those are very good positives.
Okay.
I think our water system is wonderful.
Yeah.
And what else?
We have an active club that has unrestricted membership. It's not for everybody, but it's a real asset to the community because they're doing everything first class. They're doing their own marketing, which is helpful to the entire community. It's just one more thing to do. But with our housing stock, we need all the interest groups, we need all the nature students, we need all the outdoor enthusiasts coming to Sky Valley because we're at ground zero for so many recreational possibilities.
Okay.
Recreational possibilities.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's just, something that popped into my mind is Highlands does a wonderful exchange program with the university, and they have these kids come up for a week, and they study a salamander. It's very rare, and we have it here in the Sky Valley.
They study what, Barbara?
A salamander, and they tour Highlands, and they make videos, and they write either poetry or a story or something about Highlands. In other words, it's a program that is based on this biological salamander thing, but they also encompass arts and history and archaeology, all that kind of stuff. And then they give a presentation to the public at the end of the week. And I'm thinking maybe, with the wildlife we've got, with the birds, with the nature, the trees and so on, maybe we could become educational and encourage young people to come up here and experience it. Kind of like Ham Beach summer camp.
A retreat.
Yeah, a retreat.
Okay.
I think another positive is our proximity to so many cultural, culinary, and recreational amenities.
And transportation to Atlanta. I mean, we can go anywhere in the world from Atlanta. I mean, into Asheville or Greenville. We're just an hour and a half away
Okay.
from the main center of.
Okay, let's flip the script then. What are some of your weaknesses and liabilities? What are the things that need to change?
Medical.
Internet.
Culverts and ditches.
Combinations.
Senior housing.
Yeah, slow down, folks.
We need to improve our communication among our citizens.
I I think we've got 40-year-old infrastructure, and I think recently it's been demonstrated that we're starting to have failures. We're having mudslides that need to be repaired, ditches are flooding and doing significant damage. We're replacing culvert. In terms of long-run planning, I mean, I don't know how long culverts are supposed to last under a road, but we've got 2 culverts down in front of the club that 80% of us have to use to get in and out of Sky Valley.
If you're on that deferred maintenance down there.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Deferred maintenance.
Perfect.
You also said accommodations?
I was saying, I was just looking back on 2014, we had a senior housing, for a senior independent living facility, assisted living facility.
He's cheating, he's using material from the old plan.
Yeah,
What else? Weaknesses, liabilities,
We need
things that
an
need.
active marketing plan with community input. Which goes with
regional input.
What became of the one that you guys did around 2015?
The person who implemented it is no longer here.
What other liabilities?
Actually, there's no public transportation. There's no, for instance, if you had a nursing home in the area in here, there's no taxis or buses or any way to get around.
Raven doesn't have a dial ride?
Yeah, they do.
You do?
And there is a taxi that
There is
comes
a
up here.
taxi, so there's actually
And
2
then-
here in town.
And there's another shuttle service that started up, and they're based out of Tiger. Runs.
to the airport.
It's through the senior center, isn't it?
Not, this one's not, but I think there is another one.
Trying to hire new employees.
At the very least, on behalf of the transit issue, there might need to be improvement in communication and working what they can do. Yes, ma'am?
It just, you know, when you're trying to, like the club, they have difficulty getting staff. You know, trying to get people
Yeah.
to want to work in Sky
Got it.
Valley. I mean, and, you know, even though our police department, when they were trying to hire new policemen, you know, we need incentives for people to come to Sky Valley to want to work here. Like Davos or,
Peanut butter sandwiches.
Okay. What else? All right, what are those things that are influencing you from outside? What are the threats and the development trends or things that you are responding to that are happening outside of your control?
I'd say the baby boomer population's up there pretty high.
What did you say?
we couldn't hear you.
The baby boomer population, the oldest generation will be turning 73 this year, 10,000 people a day. The youngest baby boomers are turning 55 this year.
An aging population.
Yeah.
Well.
So you all just have to stop aging. No more birthdays.
I'm with that.
The alternative is pretty
It's a very
strong.
important point, because if our marketing program isn't getting the kind of traction that we want it to get, there's a timeline on it, there's a deadline. I mean, if you're gonna attract retirees, we need to do it while there's lots and lots of retirees, because it's just gonna get tougher and tougher as the baby boom bulge passes through the
While
retirement
they're still
process.
working,
While they're still
while they're
working.
still working and can
Yeah.
afford it.
Right,
Yeah.
before their second home.
Yeah.
Or their retirement home.
I think we're positively affected by all the new companies and projects that are going on in Raven County, like Julep Farms, like they're revamping Raven Manor. all the new businesses that are moving into here. I think that's really to our advantage, and we need to work cooperatively with them.
Support them. Raven Manor lives in Sky Valley.
Yes,
Street.
yes, they do.
So
But they're spending millions of dollars to redo it, and which is gonna be at the PLA tomorrow.
Okay.
I think an outside threat would be newer developments. Specifically in the Asheville area, I've heard advertisements for active living that has the walking trails and the community garden and the amenities to bring in younger residents, and they're all new instead of 40 years old.
Yeah.
But they have jobs.
And they are advertising heavily.
Okay.
I feel threatened every time there's a new sign on our drive on 246. I want that to be like a ceremonial procession way coming up to Sky Valley. I wish we could get rid of all the billboards, get rid of some of the state border signs that clutter up things. The fewer signs we see, the happier I'm going to be. Keeping that natural. They're going to build 2 new houses down at the bottom of the hill. Oh my gosh, that's a shame. Julep Farm's great. The RV park on York House Road. Oh my gosh.
All this is great, good ideas, but until, in my mind, until we can get a large company to come up here to bring workers in, that if we could get a company to come in here and say brought in 500 jobs, this area would grow, the whole Raven County would grow. We've got to get more than just small companies, small little ones here or there. We need to get in something large so that we can get a big influx in, and then they'll start to grow from there.
Okay.
I have another comment.
Yes. Just following on the mayor's comments, look what the movie industry has done for Atlanta because of tax incentives. I mean, so you give corporations tax incentives, they're gonna come to Raven County. A different kind of scale. What kind of industry can we bring to Raven County that can bring folks that could afford houses up here in Sky Valley? I mean, that's kind of my thinking, maybe tax incentives.
And something that you folks want to think about, which everyone involved with this process in the other communities are all having the same aspect of the discussion. We've heard it 3 or 4 times already. If you were to do some of these improvements and you were able to get things like the hotel or conference center up here, you fix up a little bit of the water, sewer, and some of the roads around the community are fixed up, and maybe an employer of any note comes up to the area, what comes with it?
Traffic.
More people,
More traffic.
you start, and when the people move in, where are they gonna go? Well, they're gonna be, houses along the roads or in places that it's all the scenic beauty, you have to give and take what you wanna get out of it. So part of this exercise is when we look at this thing, maybe we can find options among the, when we want employers, part of it is wanting the tax revenue, or to adjust the tax base. Part of it is for things for people to do, for younger residents to find careers. So is there something else we can do that kind of fits that part of the equation that doesn't change too much of the dynamic of like, well, now we're inundated with 3,000 new residents and they're all building on the hillsides that we thought were pretty trees, last year. We have to figure out how to balance that, and that's part of the things we go through this. And one of the things that we have to recognize is for a lot of these folks, because everyone has said, the scenic beauty, the access to outdoor recreational opportunities, the access to the natural resources, the chance to have, clean water in certain places, some with asterisks, and the chance to meet your neighbor, even if that neighbor is a bear. that sort of thing. They like that and they don't want to change that. And that's why a lot of folks are here. So what can we do that affects some of the positive stuff within our means that doesn't dramatically alter that or have the unintended consequences?
That's true.
Highlands Laurel Magazine has this fabulous ad. 2 children walking down a lane, and it says, "Life as it was meant to be lived." And it is away from suburbia, away from high tech. It's natural foods, farm to table, clean air, no air conditioning, and it's Edwards Inn. Big deal about go and live like in a camp of nature. I'm gonna find out what that is.
Adam, I'm with Barb on that. You know, if we need employment, and since this is a county-wide plan, why can't our county also commit to promoting the recreational economy, the quality of life economy? And if we're gonna get new jobs up here, you know, people, some of the places that are growing are places that are the best places to live. This is one of the best places to live. That's why we need internet, people that can work from home. How do you attract the folks that could locate anywhere, that are footloose and are going to go to the place that's the best place to live?
So here's what we're going to do in the essence of time for today. I will stick around longer if anyone wants to speak with me, but I'm going to put a bow on this particular session because I know it's lunchtime and I know folks are getting a little antsy. You do have my contact information as well, so like I said, you can send me the follow-up. Take this discussion. You will be getting, or I will be sending to Ella and to the committee members my notes from this and from the other meetings as well, that you can see what folks are saying thus far. And as I get the results from the survey in, we'll be putting that all together. That shortly after the turn of the month, you'll see an updated draft document that begins to put some of this stuff in there because it makes it a lot easier for people to track where, what are the holes that need to be filled in the process. But you've heard this discussion, and all of this is, like I said, it's about managing our resources to get the best of what we want for Sky Valley going forward. So when you begin to look at this list of potential opportunities, you look at these threats and these issues and you're trying to address and say, I want to get to that vision. I want to ensure that my kids and grandchildren have the chance to see that vision of Sky Valley come to fruition. What is it going to take to get there? That when we look at the practical items in the work program that we have to choose from, you're going to have to start feeding and make recommendations to folks. Advise the elected officials, advise the advisory committee, and tell them, say, okay, we know we have budgetary problems. So with the limited funding we've got, how much of it is the new shovel for this guy versus the new push broom for that guy? Or hopefully there'll be a bit more in the kitty than that. But that's what we're trying to do. The document will ultimately be adopted by the communities, but it is something that is a living document. Not only will we be back next 5 years to do this again, but if along the way we have that opportunity, that major employer knocks on our doorstep, or we learn something that might change our fortunes, we need to amend it, have a special session, we can do that too. The important thing is that every once in a while we stop, say, where are we? Where do we want to go? Make sure we're still driving in the same direction. Hey Siri, am I still headed to where I want to get to? That's what this is. And so we want to make sure that you guys know that you have your say, both today and in the survey and in contacting me, and then you can then follow up with the draft document, make sure that what they end up working with represents what we want best for Sky Valley. So last comment, and then I'll...
Is it redundant to put a threat of no strategic service delivery strategy?
Well...
or have we made that abundantly clear?
That falls under the given category.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping, this is close enough, I'm hoping that we have achieved a lessons learned process that once the courts take care of this, for better or for worse, winners and losers, it will be done. And like I said, the very first meeting that we had, it was made clear. Coordination on local governments and not making those same mistakes was like 1 and 1A as far as going forward.
1 through 10.
So now, it will be incumbent upon the parties to follow through on that, as with all things. And so we'll be making some suggestions on what we can do. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 ideas. When I get the list of needs and opportunities, I feed them some suggestions, possible tools and solutions to choose from to go into the policy and the work program. And so we'll see if they can find something that works out for you guys. So that being said, I'm done for this, but like I said, I'll make myself available afterwards. Thank you very much for everyone's time and attention. And please sign the sign-in sheet on your way out. There's on the table back there.
And I would like to note